Good evening, lovely spirits. It's the wise servant here, Mr. Solace Usier. All praises to the horizon, peace, wealth, and wisdom. Now this evening I want to do this video explaining the Djed, this being ancient Egypt. Now in order for you to fully understand the Djed, one must understand the Ben stone. This is the beginnings of the Djed. But before I get into that, I want to explain to you the proper pronunciation of Djed. This is D-J-E-D. Now, if you go back to ancient Egypt times, their spelling was more like D-D. This is Djed, which is basically dead. And so that word Djed is pronounced dead, the same way as our word dead. We have to remember there was no J's or no J pronunciations in those times. When you're dealing with early language, so it's developing from the 5 vowel sounds. And as those sounds are merged together, so you get more sounds. And so, of course, our letters represent these sounds, letters being symbols. So, when I say early language developed from the 5 vowel sounds, and those 5 vowel sounds kind of being mixed and merged together to create more sound, well, this is early language. And so this is why if you kind of look at ancient Egyptian writing, is kind of strange like that, like the way it's spelled. But in any event, the word Djed is truly pronounced dead, and that's important in understanding what the Djed is. Now, when you're dealing with the Djed, as I said, it starts with the Ben stone, or the Ben mound. Now, most people should know that the Ben stone or the Ben mound, this is supposedly the first house of God, which is Amen at that time. When you're dealing with ancient Egyptians, you will notice that their gods kind of change over time, which ones have the most reverence. So in early Egyptian times, they worshipped Baba, the baboon deity, different ones as they went along. And so when you're dealing with the Ben mound, this would be your first house of God, which would be Amen at that early time. And so it kind of says Amen flowed through the Nile Valley to the Ben stone. And so this was his first home. Now supposedly this Ben stone descended out the sky. I want you guys to grasp, the Ben mound is your first bone in the coccyx. Simple thing I want you guys to grasp. This is your first pyramid. Triangular shape. Look at an image of it. The full coccyx is your Djed. And so it's a simple thing. If you're familiar with the Ben mound, or the history of it, when you see all those obelisks in Egypt, those tall obelisks, they represent the Ben mound expanding, meaning the Ben mound rolls into obelisk. And so what this is explaining is the spine in a body, because all bodies are worlds. And so this world we live in, of course, it's a body as well. Started off as an egg cell, developing into full body. The most important part of a body is the spine, of course. This is where you can say that sperm cell that got that egg cell, our body, our world, is housed. So the sperm cell that gets the egg is housed in the spinal chamber. But the spinal chamber isn't there from the beginning. It is developed when you get to the neural tube stage. And so the spine develops. Once the spine is developed, this is how you get a rising, setting sun, or what we call awake and sleep in a world or body. And so this is what that Ben stone growing into obelisk is explaining. It's explaining the Ben stone growing into Djed, or full coccyx. And so you have to grasp, when a world is first developing, because all worlds is bodies, you get the spinal chamber piece by piece. And so you can say that God that got that egg cell, meaning that sperm or that son that got that egg cell, as the spine is slowly developing from the first piece of the coccyx, up to the sacrum, lumbar spine, thoracic, as it's developing, so you can say that God is being raised up to the central brain. So it's a simple thing to grasp. The Djed represents that. Now the reason it's called the Djed or the dead is because this part of the spine aligns with the testicles, or what will be the testicles. And this is where the dead spirits of the world is, you can say. The whole spinal chamber consists of the dead in the world. And so when we all die, so the spirit or energy returns to the spinal chamber. Same with the smaller life within you. When it dies, so the spirit or energy within it returns to the spinal chamber. And so in the early beginnings of a world, so it's the same. They're returning to the coccyx, sort of making it, if that makes sense to you. All that energy, or conscious, is what's developing that spine. This is why you have so many sacrifices that you may read about in the early history of the world. Sacrifices to Baal, things like this. And so this is why the Djed is truly called the dead. This is kind of, I guess, where we get that word from. And so I want you guys to grasp. The Djed is representing that full coccyx area. Meaning there was a point in time in the developing body or world where all you had was that coccyx. And then later on, the sacrum developed, then the lumbar spine, then the thoracic, then the cervical, then of course the central brain area. All of this develops last. This is important because you can say the smaller life within the world. We are the smaller life within this larger world. The cells within you, they are the smaller life within your body or world. Your spine developing is important because if it doesn't, stillbirth, whatever you want to call it, but there will be no life. And so you kind of have to look at it from that perspective. That coccyx first forming or developing in a world or body is important. It's signs that, progress. And so when you have like the Book of the Dead, and they have those hymns or spells to Osiris. Osiris is the sperm cell, so to say, of the son that got the world, or the egg cell. And so as this spine is developing, of course, he's buried in there, as we all are. Meaning you got your body, and so your chamber is that spine. And so those spells, you can say, is kind of like spells of resurrection. Meaning when the sperm cell gets the egg, so it's in the primitive groove until the spine begins to, develop slowly from the coccyx or the Djed up to the central brain. As the body expands, so, the upper parts of the body start to develop. The spine going there. Kind of bringing that Osiris or that son or sperm cell from the beginning that got the world, the God over it, raising it up. As the spine is developing, so you can say it's being raised up to the central brain. And so it's a simple thing to grasp. As this body is developing, so of course the spine is expanding. And so the body is expanding. And so you have the cells, which would be the cerebrum cells. This is the brain cells. They have to make their way up with that spine. You can kind of say they're the guards of it. This would be the children of Israel. And so they would be the cells or the life in the body that will live up in the top parts of a world, so to say. But you have to remember, the head is developing last. And so when they were explaining the children of Israel bringing the Ark of the Covenant basically to the new promised land, is speaking of that. This is why when Moses parted the Red Sea, it's explaining the brain parting. Left hemisphere right. You got your corpus callosum. This is that, you can say land bridge that, connects both halves of the brain. And so the cells kind of run back and forth. On our level of life, of course, we live in a body no different. So up in the north. And so you kind of have to grasp. Many people have the wrong perspective of what a world is. We look at Earth as a world. Earth is just a place in a world. All worlds are bodies. And so a body is a whole star or star system, meaning the rising, setting sun with what y'all call the planets. This is the chakra. Planets do not spin around suns, but planets, just like chakra, go up and down, meaning from south to north. I'm not saying the chakras move, but they're aligned down from the bottom up, meaning from your sacrum area up to the central brain area. And so these are planets. The sun rises and sets, past these points. These chakra are what's bounding the life, meaning the smaller life in the body. It's bounding that to its cavity space, along with the organ and the cerebral spinal fluid. This being your waters and your land, you can say. And so the cells is bounded to that space in the body. And so the cells, or the smaller life, is bounded to its area. And so this is what a world is. A whole star system, meaning you're a world. A whole star system. A rising, setting sun. You have your planets, or your chakra. The same with this larger body we live in. Rising, setting conscious. And what we call the planets is just your chakra points. And so Earth, or the third planet, is your third chakra, which is in this area, your heart chakra area, the thoracic area. If you're speaking of the back, of course. The front, this is your, I forget the name of the chest plate, what they call it, but this area is your Earth. Beneath it is your Mars, your lumbar spine area. And so what we call planets is your chakra points. Mars is beneath us. Jupiter, Saturn, these things are beneath us. Mercury and Venus is above us. This is your north planets, or areas in a body that they're speaking of. Meaning the children of Israel would be men that live in those planets, or those chakras in this body, or solar system, or world. And so it's speaking of that. As the spine is developing in this world, where y'all see the sun rising and setting, as it was developing, it didn't always go all the way up. That was a slow process as the spine was developed. And so there was a point in time where the sun was just, kind of passed around from north, south, east to west. This is where you have your pyramid cities. And so these was, you can say, the early or pre-spines, meaning chamber for the sun. You get it? And so If you go from the south continents all the way up to the north ones, you have your pyramid cities. This is what that's for, but this is in the first time before the body begin to develop, before the amniotic stage, or on this level, before the flood. So before the flood, you had no rising and setting sun, but you kind of had it being moved from, north, south, east to west. Over time, of course. Meaning the Southlands in the world would have it for a time in their pyramid city. And, for another time it'd be in the east, then the north, then the west, so on and so forth, until you get your flood or your amniotic sac stage. This is where the fluid, fills up in the amniotic sac where the egg is, and so the body begins to develop then. This is when your spine begins to develop. And so your Djed is that coccyx, the Benben mound being that first parts of it, that first triangle of it, so to say. Because you have the fused bone, but it goes into a triangle shape. And so I want you guys to kind of grasp. It's a matter of that, the Djed being that coccyx. The spine is important because of that. If that spine doesn't develop in a body or a world, so you guys all know what happened. You won't have no baby being born or world being born. And so that's kind of how, it's explained. The first time of the first world is before the amniotic sac or the flood. Because all bodies is world. So your body tells the same story as this outer world you live. We're just calling it different things. Meaning when you physically experience something ain't the same as when you're studying it on a cell level. And so the first world is that. Before the flood or the amniotic sac stage. The second time is, the time from the amniotic stage to the birth. Meaning all that time of development to the birth, this is the second time. Third time is, the birth to puberty. You get it? Then you got your last time, which is, when that body finally dies. And so you can say puberty is your last major event. After that, it's just the end of the world. And so a lot of the signs are showing, that we getting close to the death of the body that we're in. And so this is important. I want you guys to look at a world, meaning we live in this world. Imagine if the sun left or just didn't rise anymore. And so the sun just disappeared from you guys' perspective. And so it'd be a dark, cold place. No energy, no oxygen really. It will begin to become a dead world. Of course, we're in it, so as this is happening, we're slowly dying. Oxygen is slowly running out. We cold. You get it? A dead world. Meaning this is a reality. The sun, I know science tell like, the sun could just blow up and conscious go out. This is a simple thing. When the body dies, the conscious go out. And so the cells in the body are still scrambling, trying to survive. If you guys are familiar with a dead body, the cells inside don't die right away. You get it? So it's the same on the macro level. And so when the sun disappears, so to say, from this world, our star, solar system, all of it, I want you guys to grasp. This is what an egg cell is. A dying world. So every time you see a moon, because the moon is an egg cell on a larger level of life, meaning on our level of life, in the world we live in, a moon is that egg cell. We be the cells in the body. And so every time you see a new moon, what you're seeing is a world that ran its course. If the moon gets a sperm cell or a meteorite, so of course it will become a whole solar system. Of course, when egg cells get conceived, so they're moved. You know? And so you don't have to expect to see it turning into baby or solar system, so to say, but this is what that is. And so every moon you see every month, so this is a world or a star that died, dead world, or a pre-solar system, just like an egg cell. An egg cell is a dead star or world on the cell level of life. You get it? A moon is, a bunch of dead organisms on the level of life. If that egg cell is conceived, so it will grow into solar system. Next level of life. Of course, being body with the smaller life within. And so it's a simple thing. An egg cell is just a dead world. Sperm cell getting it is a new sun returning. So this is like your coming of Jesus, and however they choose to word it. But these things is important. We all live in a world, a body, when it passes, so you guys will know what it is to be an egg cell, or what it is to be living in an egg cell, waiting on the gods, or the sperm, so to say. And so it's a very deep thing I want you guys to grasp. Hopefully you guys understood that. Like I said, the Ben Stone, this is your early first parts of those fused bones of the coccyx. The full coccyx, when that finally develops in the body or world, this is your Djed. And of course, as it develops more, the names of the god change, because the position change, meaning all these different parts of the spine represent your north, south, east, west. North, south, east, west is an up and down thing. North is up, south is down. So your sacrum is your south. Lumbar spine, parts of your south. When you get to your lower thoracic, this is your east. You get it? Upper thoracic and cervical, your west. Central brain, of course, your north. And so it's like that. They represent, cardinal direction. And so the brain kind of falls into that north, south, east, west, the four lobes of the brain, which is an extension of the spine. Spine starting from the bottom. That's why it says first shall be last. Last shall be first. You get it? And so the coccyx develops first, but it's the last parts of the chamber of God, so to say. And so as that spine is developing, you can say the God is being raised up to the central brain. All parts of the spine, meaning the vertebrae, are all pyramidal or triangular in shape. Just like if you look at the sacrum, triangular in shape. The coccyx, triangular in shape. And so it's a deep thing I want you guys to grasp. This is the significance of pyramids. They're the house of God. And so the pyramids we have, just from the early beginnings of the world, before it stretched into body or expanded. And so at one point the world was as big as Egypt. The whole world. Just like your whole body was the size of a pin drop. So worlds expand, universes expand, all is body. And so that Djed is important because of that, as I explained. Book of Psalms, Book of the Dead. If you're familiar with ancient Sumer texts, and they have those hymns to Osari, I believe that's tablet 7. This is what that is. kind of spells being said to the dead life that's being added. As I said, the conscious or spirit within, the living, when it dies, it returns to that chamber in the early world. So that dead life or energy is needed more than ever, because that's what's building or making up that spine. You have to grasp that God body, meaning that sperm cell that got the egg is God over that world, and that God body consists of energy or conscious. And so all the life in the world holds its conscious from the beginning, because sperm cell gets egg, and so you get a multiplicity of cells within it, an egg cell, body, whatever, but that initially started from the sperm cell getting it. And so all the energy within all the vessels in that world, when I say vessels, I mean all the bodies in that world, initially come from that sun. And so when they die, the energy returns, that God body consisting of all the energy of the living. And so when the coccyx of the spine is first developing in the early world or body, it's the dead life that's making it, as I said. When I say dead life, I mean the energy within it, the actual life, the conscious of that being. All this dead or all this energy is what's making or developing that God body, making that spine develop where it raises to the brain. And so this is why they had a lot of sacrifice in the past, or the early world in antiquity, where they were sacrificing kids and things to Baal, the innocent life, so to say. And so, why the innocent life? Well, that's what's going to be raised up to the top. You get it? An early spine, when you got the coccyx only. So you can look at this as the central brain, but it's just below. Has to be raised up. And so you have to look at it as the coccyx bone, the sacrum, all these bones before you get to the central brain, they are like the pillars holding it up. You get it? And so it's like when all you have was the coccyx, on top of it, your central brain. You get the sacrum, on top of it, central brain. As the sacrum develops more and you get your lumbar spine now, central brain on top. You get it? And so it's like the first of the dead is what's rising up. As the spine is developing and more death or life is being added, into the bottoms, you get it? It's going beneath, raising up. And so the innocent life, if you're wondering why they kill kids in the early world, and it's a matter of the innocent life, or the pure life, the good, higher conscious, or more positive energy, kind of up. That's why I say first shall be last, last shall be first. And so it's a simple thing to grasp. The Djed, this is a matter of a spine thing, but in order for one to truly grasp, they have to know what a world is, which is a body. It's the wise servant. Peace, wealth, and wisdom. All praises to the horizon. Peace.